Okay, when we think of nutrition, we often think of calories, our diet, minerals, vitamins, supplements. We think about the stuff that we eat. And that's usually what comes to mind when somebody says something is nutritious. But there are many forms of nutrition, right? There's intellectual nutrition. What do we allow our minds to feed on a daily, regular basis? I look around and I see a lot of very malnourished people, and that's all I'm going to say there. So let's define nutrient, because nutrient is at the root of nutritious and nutrition and all that. A nutrient is something essential for growth and or maintenance of living things. It's something that a living system requires to maintain its life, whether it's in the growing phase or whether it's in the maturity stage where it wants to maintain homeostasis. Something is nutritious if it's benefiting the living system to either grow and or maintain homeostasis. The type of movement that I'm talking about is not limited simply to exercising. I know that a lot of us think I have a very sedentary lifestyle. I sit at my desk all week, so I want to be more active. So the first thing that comes to mind is going to the gym. And Qi Gong is a very different exercise, a very different routine, because it doesn't involve any mechanical equipment. It's really based more on natural movement, which is what's nice about it. You can do it anywhere throughout the day, or at least parts of it. It's also more fluid. Qi Gong is more, you're keeping all your joints, all of your like elbows and shoulders, everything is to be more relaxed and more fluid. So we're not really overloading the system with some kind of external weight. It has more to do with how you're moving your body. And that's the part that I think is the most confusing, especially to many of us in modern America, because we've got the no pain, no gain model, and we have the, we've got to be really pumping the muscles. But remember, with Qigong, we're not just working muscles. We're working ligaments, tendons, fascia. Okay, so there's a whole lot more systems, a lot of breath work involved in Qigong. Okay, what are some of the benefits of this practice that we're about to learn? I'm just going to list a few things, but believe me, this list could go on for a long time. But fascial sheaths, first and foremost. Fascia in the body slides and glides. It's designed to slide and glide over top of each other. Okay, it's meant to be kind of lubricated. And when you have, let's say, myofascial, which is the fascia that surrounds a muscle, and you have muscles next door to each other, they have to move back and forth without sticking, right? And the fascia, the fascial sheaths, have to be lubricated and they have to move back and forth. If that doesn't happen, if you are in a sedentary lifestyle and those muscles are laying dormant next to each other for long periods of time, the fascia will start to kind of communicate with each other and connect almost like Velcro to each other. So then you have muscles that are getting stuck. That's one form of an adhesion. Okay, there's many, not like scar tissue is a form of adhesion, but not all adhesions are scar tissue, right? Fascial adhesions are what can start to limit and restrict our range of motion, make it painful to move. Synovial fluid, there's something. In all of our joints, shoulder, knee, between the vertebra, anywhere where there's cartilage and discs, synovial fluid keeps that cartilage lubricated. Okay, you hear people talk about, I've got bone on bone. Well, that's because the cartilage is worn away. The reason probably the cartilage is worn away is because it dried out. It dried out because there's no synovial fluid to keep it moist, so it gets crunchy. And crunchy's not good. And synovial fluid makes that more like instead of an old dried out sponge, it's a sponge that's still holding moisture, right? Movement is what the body needs to generate synovial fluid. So think of a joint like think of ball bearings in a lawnmower, and there's a grease fitting. Eventually the grease dries out, so you squeeze some more in there, right? Well, our joints, our shoulders, our knees, our hips don't have grease fittings. Be a good idea. Maybe somebody should come up with that. But they're designed to generate their own grease, their own synovial fluid, and that happens by movement. So if we're not moving our joints, the cartilage starts to dry out. Something else movement very necessary for, lymphatic drainage. When we're contracting and releasing the contraction on the muscles are squeezing against the lymphatic ducts and against the lymphatic system and pulling all that interstitial fluid into the lymphatic, which is part of our immune system as well as part of our circulatory system. It's kind of a crossover system. And when you're moving that fluid up through there, it's getting cleansed, it's getting all the T cells and the white blood cells are at work, and before it gets reintroduced back into your veins. So that doesn't happen if you're not moving, because there's no pump on the lymphatic system. The pump is your muscles. Regular, constant contraction and opening up, okay? That's what makes the lymphatic system work. So movement is the heart, really, of the lymphatic system. Ligaments and tendons will calcify if they are not being moved, if they're not in motion all the time. You know, there's 33 joints in your foot, and there's a gazillion little ligaments. And when they're not being used, when they're locked up in your shoes, and especially high-heeled shoes, there's all sorts of damage being done to the ligaments and the tendons because none of them are allowed to move. They're actually getting harder. They're calcifying. And then they just start tearing. Instead of, you know, they're not supposed to be too elastic, but they have to have a little give and take. And when a ligament, let's say like shoulder ligaments, if we're not doing full range of motion with our shoulders on a regular basis, eventually some of the tendons and ligaments involved in those motions, they just calcify. And then we blame it on old age, right? It's not old age. It's not how old you are. It's how old your habits are. Always remember that. Last thing that movement benefits is right down to a cellular level. Actually, second to last thing. But down to a cellular level, if you remember your 4th and 5th grade biology class, and we learned about cells and these things called mitochondria, which are the little batteries of the cell. And the way those batteries get recharged is through something called mechanotransduction. Mechanotransduction is the compression and decompression on a cell. It has piezoelectric properties that actually charges the battery, the mitochondria of the cell. Have you ever noticed the more you sit around, the more you don't feel like doing anything? You'd think you'd be more well rested. I've been in bed all day. But instead, and I found this true with people with chronic fatigue syndrome, it kind of feeds on itself. The lack of energy, the lack of charging of the cells. All of a sudden, the cells don't even have the energy to want to charge. So, you know, that's a bad cycle. Remember that cells make up tissue. Tissue makes up organs. So if your cells are not being charged, you're going to end up with diseased tissue. And if you end up with diseased tissue, you're going to end up with diseased organs. All right, so the last thing we'll talk about as far as movement and its effect on our human health is how movement affects our proprioception system. Okay, the proprioception system is a specialized part of your autonomic nervous system that is involved with balance. It tells you where you are in space, if you're leaning too far this way or that way, if you think you're going to fall forward or something. And one of the ways in which it does that, there's this wonderful thing, I always tell people that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Well, believe me, there's a lot of moving parts, and it's amazing how well they all work together. There are these things called Golgi tendons. They're specialized nerves in place of, that are right in like tendons, attachment sites of muscles to bone. And they measure how much tension and stress is placed on those, on the tendon. But they not only protect the tendon from being overstretched by telling the body, hey, don't do that. That's the nociceptor's job. That's another specialized pain cell that says that we're being taken too far, we're being damaged. The Golgi tendon's job is to just report back to the brain how far away we are from the body, how close to the body. It tells the body where all your parts are in space so that you know if you have to make adjustments to the fast twitch muscles to keep your balance. And all of this is on a subconscious level. It's amazing. So that's part of the proprioception system, these Golgi tendons. They help keep your balance. What's the first thing that when people become elderly that they become afraid of? Falling, losing their balance. Part of that is because our Golgi tendons have been shut down. They're not in use. And they've become so accustomed to our finite, small, limited range of motions that when we start moving and doing things that we should naturally be able to do, the Golgi tendons sound the alarm, the proprioceptive system panics and says, oh no, we're falling, we can't do this. And it gets to the point where I can't walk without my walker. I can't trust my own intrinsic balance. Movement will bring that back. I'm a firm believer in that. It's lack of movement that got us there. So movement is a form of nutrition to your proprioceptive system, to your cells, to your tendons, to your ligaments. It's a form of nutrition to your lymphatic system and all the joints and cartilage and synovial fluid, right? All the fascial sheaths, you name it. You name any system in the body, your circulatory system, I don't care what it is, even memory, if you want to get into intellectual functions. Movement is a form of nutrition for all that you are, physically, intellectually, and I believe even spiritually. So, there you have it. What I'm about to teach you is a short little introduction to what I think is one of the most beneficial exercise routines that costs nothing, doesn't need any special equipment. There's little to no side effects. It can be practiced by all ages, anywhere, actually everywhere. I'm practicing it right now. But hopefully, like I said, this is an introduction. I just want to whet your appetite. If you're very interested in this, I encourage you to pursue a teacher, a real qualified instructor, somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. I would recommend, lost my arms there, I would recommend this book, 8 Simple Qi Gong Exercises for Health by Dr. Yang Ming. And there's a lot of good history in here. This is a fantastic resource. And it's where I got most of what I know about the 8 pieces of brocade or from Dr. Yang. Long before weights and exercise equipment and treadmills and ellipticals and other health and wellness apparati, gizmotrons. The only thing that we had at our disposal was ourselves and nature. That was all we interacted with. And that is the context out of which Qi Gong is born and developed. Qi Gong means energy regulation. Qi, energy or force or potential for an action. That's Qi. I know we like to get very dreamy about Qi, but really Qi is very Newtonian physics understanding. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Well, Qi is right in the middle of that. Okay? Cause and effect, Qi is right in the middle of that. It's when cause becomes effect. That's Qi. Think of it that way. So it's a word that can be applied to any number of relationships or systems or actions. And so Qi, regulation, Qi Gong. In order to use force to your benefit, I'm trying to choose my words very carefully here. In order to use force to your benefit, you have to regulate it, right? Think of a loose cannon. Depending on where it's pointed, it can do harm or good. It can take out your enemy or it can take out you. Well, the power to heal is also the power to injure. If it has enough force to do good, it also has enough force to do bad. Just like a hammer. A hammer can build something, it can also knock it apart. The idea of Qi Gong is to say, how do we harness our intrinsic natural force for our benefit? Well, in order to do that, you have to regulate it. There are 5 regulations in Qi Gong. We're not going to go into all of them, but one of them is your breath work, regulating your breath. Typical American workout usually focuses only on the muscles. Qi Gong, yes, does focus on muscle strength, but it's also focusing on the tendons and the ligaments, like we said before, keeping them open and supple and so they don't get hard, so they don't calcify. It focuses on the fascial system. It's going to help keep those adhesions from happening. And even if you do have adhesions, even scar tissue, it's going to help in conjunction with other bodywork techniques. It's a great way to break down scar tissue from actual injuries. Powerful stuff. Because it's working the fascial system, it's really getting involved at that point in the Chinese meridian system that acupuncturists and shiatsu practitioners use. That's a whole nother talk, but that's the system that you're dealing with when you're talking about traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. You're dealing with subcutaneous fascia, I believe, at that point. And that's where Qi Gong is coming in really strong and heavy, because it's the one discipline exercise-wise that focuses on that system. There are many forms of Qi Gong. Last thing I'll say on this, there are many forms of Qi Gong. Every Tai Chi master, every Kung Fu master, they all develop their own systems. They all develop their own movements. When I was studying Tai Chi in the school of Dr. Sun, Dr. Stephen Sun, he had his 10 opening exercises. That was his Qigong practice to prepare you to practice Tai Chi form. So there are many forms of Qigong. None of them are better than any other. The form that I'm about to teach you is called the 8 Pieces of Brocade. It was developed by a general, actually, a guy named Marshall. I know I'm going to butcher his name here. Marshall Yu Fei, Y-U-E-F-E-I. And again, I'm getting that information from Dr. Young's book, 8 Pieces of Brocade. And he developed this routine to help keep his soldiers strong and fit for battle. And also, if they came in injured, to help them to repair their injuries better. In the 8 pieces of brocade, there's 8 exercises that are done standing and 8 that are done sitting. We're only going to look at the 8 standing in this talk, in this presentation. All Qigong practice begins with a posture known as Wu Qi. In the Wu Qi posture, we are deliberately placing our body in direct alignment with gravity. And the better we do that, the less effort it is to stay upright. Let's begin by moving our feet shoulder width apart and relatively parallel. Then we're going to unlock the knees. Our legs aren't going to be bent, but neither are they going to be locked out either. So you want to unlock the knees. You can test if your knees are unlocked by flexing your quadriceps and seeing if your kneecaps go up and down. If they do, then you're in a good posture. So feet shoulder width apart, relatively parallel, knees unlocked. This brings our pelvis into a neutral position. So we kind of want to tuck our tailbone underneath a little bit. And as far as the upper body, our shoulders, our elbows, our wrists, everything should be loose. Should just be kind of hanging. So check to see if there's any tension in your arms, your fingers, your elbows. We have a tendency to want to hold tension there without even realizing it. So pay attention to that. We want the upper body fully relaxed. The head should be, think about dropping your chin just a little bit and then ramping your ears back over your shoulders. For most of us, that's going to give us a little bit of a stretch because we're used to the head forward posture, but that's okay. Qigong will help us work our way out of that. So chin dropped, ramp the head back just a little bit, and then the real key to this posture is pretending like you're being lifted by a string that's attached to the very crown of your head. You have to use your imagination a little bit here. But in this posture, when you pretend like you're being lifted by a string, you will actually feel your back decompress a little bit. You may feel yourself get a little lighter on your feet. This posture takes a while to master, so be patient. But this is how we will begin every Qigong move and every Qigong practice, is in the Wu Qi posture. Okay, coming out of Wu Qi posture, we scoop up, we interlock the fingers, we push up to the ceiling while rising up on the balls of our feet. Then we come back down, we go to one side. Notice that we're keeping our arms rounded, not straight. Come back to center, lean over to the other side, again keeping the hands interlocked, our head between our elbows, and we come back down, and that's 1 rep. Now we add breathing. Breath in and breath out as we go up on our toes. Breath in as we come back down again, and breath out as we go to one side. When we come back to center, breath in, then breath out, then breath in back to center, and a big breath out for closing. Bring the arms up and relax and go back to the Wu Qi posture. Here we come out of the Wu Qi posture, we take a wide horse stance, so we spread the legs out, And we pretend like we're picking up a bow and arrow. And the one hand is against the bow and the other hand is pulling back the string. So we're imagining the tension that exists between the bow and the string. It's kind of an isometric exercise. So, breath in as we lift the bow, breath out as we draw the bow. Breath in as we pick up the bow, breath out as we stretch the bow. And if you notice, our arms are not locking out, our knees should not be locking out, and we close. Then return back to the Wu Qi posture. Coming out of Wu Qi posture, we place our hands parallel, then one hand pushes up while the other hand pushes down. We then come back, the hands pass each other, the opposite hand pushes up, the opposite hand pushes down. The breath work for this is breath out as we're pushing away from center, and breath in as we're pulling to center, then breath out as we're pushing away from center. Then we do a breath in back to center, and we close with a breath out, returning to Wu Qi posture. Coming out of the Wu Qi posture, we're going to start turning our head very slowly to one side, being careful that the shoulders don't come with it. So you want your shoulders stationary, and then we're going to simply turn head side to side. The breath work is breath out as we move away from center, breath in as we move to center, breath out as we move away from center, and breath back into center. The hands for the second part of this will go over the low back. And we'll do the exact same head turning, only with our hands behind us. And this is going to isolate a different set of muscles in the neck than when our hands are just, relaxing to our sides. The next step of this is where we're going to bring the hands forward as though we're holding a book or a big ball or a box. You can imagine whatever you want. And again, we're going to turn our head side to side using our breath work. And also, when we get to the full extent of our range of motion, let your eyes keep going to look further back, and you'll get additional stretch. And breath in and close with an exhale. Return to Wu Qi. Coming out of Wu Qi posture into a wide horse stance, we place our hands on our thighs with the fingers pointed in and the thumbs pointed out as we look around the corner. The breath work is breath into center, breath out away from center. Breath into center, breath out away from center. We take a breath in back to center, stand, exhale, close. Return to Wu Qi. Come out of the Wu Qi posture, interlock the fingers, push up to the ceiling. This time we keep our feet on the floor, but we arch backwards, and then slowly come forward to as far as is comfortable, and then come back to center. So it's a breath out, breath in, breath out, Breath in back to center and close with a breath out. Coming out of our Wu Qi posture, we go into a wide horse stance. We grasp with the fists. One fist screws itself through the air while the other fist is pulling in tight. Then we release and we repeat on the other side. With the eyes, we are staring fiercely down through our fist. The breath work is inhale and exhale as we push. Then we release, inhale and exhale as we push. Again, do not lock out at the elbows. Inhale and close with an exhale. And then return to the Wu Qi posture. From the Wu Qi posture, we're going to rise up on the balls of the feet with the hands at the sides, then with the hands on the back, and then we're going to come around with the hands to the front. And just like before, the breath work is whenever you're going away from center, you breathe out. Whenever you're coming back to center, you breathe in. And we close with an exhale.